afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Valuation Edge podcast here with BizEquity for episode number 4. And on this beautiful summer afternoon, very excited to welcome the newest guest, to the podcast here. Longtime BizEquity power user, the owner of Blazing Bear Insurance Services, and host of the Protecting What Matters radio show out of California. Joining us today from the West Coast, Mr. Barry Fisher.
Well,
Welcome, Barry, and thank you for taking the time today.
thank you for inviting me. I'm usually at the other end of the questioning, so this will be fun.
Yeah, well, very experienced and very successful, like you said. At least on the radio show side, I know the podcasts maybe in the future you're considering, and like
Yeah.
you said, it's good to have different perspectives. And over the course of a year, almost half decade with us, a lot of great insights and perspective, like you said, from your career, your prior to Biz Equity, and everything you've been able to grow over these past few years of partnering. So, really just want to dive in today and just take this chance in the next half hour or so to really hear about your experience in terms of your background on the insurance side specifically, and then everything through Biz Equity and the platform, how you've been able to take that to the next level. So I think maybe for everyone here in the Biz Equity ecosystem, to kick things off, if you could just share a little bit about yourself, your background, and kind of what led you to Biz Equity here to join the platform here about 5 years ago.
All right. Well, thanks. Real quickly, I started my life and health insurance career the year of our great country's bicentennial, and here it is, the semi-quincentennial now. It's hard to say, actually, and I'm still hanging in there and enjoying it more than ever. Really, I was trained as a classic life and health insurance agent. Um, Everything from selling mortgage insurance to doing buy sells and succession planning and key person coverages. And I've sat around a lot of greasy kitchen tables and a lot of corporate boardrooms over the last 50 years. I think probably my primary, I guess, if I have a claim to fame, is I was a pioneer in the long-term care insurance industry and continue to be, actually. I fell into it back in the mid 80s. Started my own. I had moved from retail insurance sales to wholesale insurance sales about that time. So I ended up being a wholesaler of long-term care insurance products in California, and then I also had a national agency that we worked. It was one of those things. I mean, we all have this experience, over a period of time, you hit certain lucky spots, and even though I didn't know it was lucky at the time, it turned out really well. I sold my agency in California in 2013, and I sold with my business partner, our national operation in 2014. Went off into consulting world. Still have a business partner in consulting, where we work with life insurance companies to help them design long-term care insurance products and then get them out the market through independent distribution. But then what happened was we're on 2019 or 2020 with COVID, nobody wanted to hire consultants. So I was sitting around at my ranch here in the central coast of California one day, and I just was bored to tears. And I said, I did some research, and I don't think anybody's really helping consumers. And there weren't enough people helping consumers anymore with their basic life and long-term care insurance needs. And so I created Blazing Bear Insurance Services, and went off on I guess now a 5-year journey and mission to recreate myself as a retail insurance agent, and primarily focused with business owners, because I've been self-employed for 50 years and I like working with people who are entrepreneurs. That's the joy of BizEquity's platform, is that it's really geared to help entrepreneurs better understand their business and do the right things for themselves and their families. And that's what I've been doing.
I love it. And like you said, sometimes the opportunity just presents itself and life leads you,
Yeah.
in the direction where, the hard work and the opportunity meet and it all just comes to fruition from there. So I'm very glad it led us to where we're at today here on the podcast and a
Yeah.
lot of great stuff to get into.
Yep.
But tell me a little bit just kind of on that journey, because I think that's what makes you such a just unique perspective, interesting use case of your background in the insurance space, and then working with entrepreneurs to have that intersection where our platform really helps, not just from the valuation itself, but being the baseline, from that insurance conversation and taking it from there.
Well, again, when I restarted I had to retrain myself in the life insurance business. I had been so immersed in long-term care insurance for 30 plus years, and I realized I had forgotten more than I remembered. So I spent a couple of years, basically recreating a retail insurance agency. Again, I don't do investments. I'm not an investment guy. I strictly deal with people's succession planning risk, key person risk, long-term care risks, disability. I'll do some disability insurance and annuities, fixed annuities, and that's it. Um, I primarily work for most of my clients come from referrals. I'm affiliated here with a property casualty agency that doesn't want to do long-term care insurance, life or long-term care insurance, and so I get a regular flow of client opportunities with them. I also have discovered that there are a lot of financial advisors who don't just wealth advisors who don't want to deal with the insurance piece. It's not. It's like selling insurance is not transactional. So like doing investments. So I mean, I have a deep background in impaired risk underwriting, which and as you get clients that are older in their 50s and 60s, and sometimes even older than that, you're generally dealing with an impairment, some sort of health impairment that you got to get the client through. But anyway, as I started getting business owner clients to talk to, I ask them, well, do you have a buy sell? They have a partnership. Do you have a buy sell agreement? Yeah, we need a buy sell agreement. We need to fund the buy sell agreement. And I said to them, what's your business worth? And they say, we have no idea. And, thankfully, one of the insurance companies that I was using at the time had a relationship with BizEquity. I ended up talking to their advanced market people internally and saw how the system worked. And then within a very short period of time, that company got bought by a Canadian pension uh, plan. And I just didn't like the feel of that. And so I ended up going directly to BizEquity and becoming a user. And then having been a middleman, having been an intermediary between insurance companies and the broker, I didn't like the fact that I was dealing with an intermediary. I wanted to come directly to BizEquity. And you've basically, Kevin, have coached me through this system. Every case seems to be unique in some fashion. But the first year I was doing the service. I did like 5 or 6 valuations, and I didn't because I wanted to see how the system worked. I had some test dummies or some guinea pigs, but I learned the system that way. And then one of the advisors that referred clients to me said, Barry, you really should be charging for this service. Now this was a real anathema to me because I had never done anything other than sell insurance and receive a commission for selling insurance. So I had a real queasy feeling about charging a fee for this. But as you know, Kevin, because we worked through the process together, I started charging a very nominal fee. I think I started at like $1,500 for evaluation. And then if it was a referral, I'd knock $250 off as a referral fee. I didn't pay the advisor. I wanted the advisors to look good, that their client was getting a special price, because they were referred to me. And then after another year or so, I started saying, well, gee, yeah, this is kind of nice. It's kind of nice getting checks in the mail to do a service for somebody. So I ended up slowly but surely raising my fees, and now I think I just went up to $2,500 for the whole to charge for the service. And what I found was that consumers were more comfortable with that process, that notion of paying for the service, and they didn't feel like they had to buy insurance from me. And I can also deal with people that don't need insurance. They just want to sell their business, or they want to merge their business or something like that. So this way, I kind of found that I took the kind of pressure to sell insurance off the BizEquity process. And many times I'll just go do a I'll do a and I'm sure we're going to talk about this. What happens is the BizEquity platform, as you go through the process with the client, is geared to help you ask the right questions about the client's insurance needs. Because you need to know the stuff, you have, and so yeah, so that's kind of how I have evolved it. And and now the next thing, and again, I know we'll talk about this again a little bit more, is I've put together a group of locally here where we're doing exit planning. I was approached by a woman who is a fractional COO, and that's the first thing she wants when she goes to work for a client is evaluation, because she wants to be able to measure their success. And then she started saying, well, we need, I've been wanting to put together this exit planning group, and I pulled together a couple of other people that I was also networking with, a wealth advisor who doesn't do insurance, and we've started putting together, seminars. We're talking to a lot. We're finding that there are a lot of CPAs and attorneys out there that want these kinds. They don't want to do this kind of stuff for people. They want to either do taxes or they want to do something else. But we have a real dearth of CPAs in our area, and I'm sure that's probably happening in most parts of the country as well. But we're finding that there's a lot of interest amongst allied professionals that want to be able to take their client to a team of people that can start working them through that exit planning process, which, as you know, is about a 3 to 5 year process to get to that point. So yeah, so that's been another um, fun project that I just started. So, and we'll see how it turns out. It's evolving daily, as it seems like everything does. So.
Absolutely. And I think it's a beautiful thing, like you said, to see it evolve. And like you said, in terms of our, partnership and working together through the years, it feels like, it was just yesterday we connected on one of those first cases, and now we're here today. And
Mhm.
like you said, to see it evolve, and at the end of the day, just your mission and best serving the business owner, and making sure that you're giving them the insights and the value they need to make those important and crucial decisions. It all comes back to it, and whether it's like you said, from an insurance standpoint with the buy sell, from going through an exit planning engagement, whatever it may be, it starts at valuation at the core of it. So
Mhm.
I think it's a testament too for you just to be continue to be ambitious, to be curious, like you said, always looking to see what's next and really take this on and become such a trusted power user in your community, which I'm sure we'll talk about more in terms of your marketing and how you've been able to position yourself as that go-to for valuations, like you said, for those other people in those networks and just overall ecosystems that you built. So
Ultimately, I mean, and we've talked about this, and I should really emphasize this. Um, the BizEquity platform gives me a competitive advantage over other people who are just selling insurance. And and it's also, and one of the things I really like about it, and is the platform itself is uniquely uh, perfect for doing work over Zoom. So that, in fact, it's better to talk to somebody over Zooms because they can actually see your screen and see what's going on the platform, and it's like interactive. And I've done some business valuations for people all over the country, because again, and I'm because that's the way the referrals come in. So it's been really quite interesting and gratifying, really, so to do it.
absolutely. And I think too, as you mentioned, I could attest, you've definitely gotten some, unique ones through the year, but it's a testament to, like you said, the work that you put in, that network to put those opportunities up in front and really make them present. So tell me a little bit about that too, as you mentioned with the CPAs and attorneys, for the perspective of just the center of influence and how important it is to build those trusted relationships when it comes to
Hmm.
from pipeline and overall just marketing perspective, really tapping into those because you've had a lot of success with that, as you mentioned. But just tell us maybe a little bit more about how that's come to fruition and the opportunities that come from looking at it from that lens.
Yeah, so I think, and I never did. So my big impediment where I'm working this. So first of all, I mean, I'm in the Central Coast of California, in a very rural area, north of San Luis Obispo, if anybody's familiar with that, halfway between LA and San Francisco. And it's a beautiful area, big wine growing appellation, very aggy, very, there's a lot of grapes and there's a lot of cattle. Anyway, and it's and so and I'm having never really done retail, any kind of business up here, because this was my second home initially, and then I moved up here about full time only 20 years ago. I didn't have a client base or anything like that, so I just started. I'm kind of a natural networker, and I fell into doing this local radio show about 4 or 5 years ago. I guess it's been 4 years now, and I wouldn't say, and I advertise on the radio station. That's how I fell into doing the show. And I don't talk about insurance or business valuation a lot. Even I kind of figure, the show has got a theme that is related to insurance, but it's not necessarily insure. I'm not Dave Ramsey talking about financial planning every week. I talk to a lot of local influencers about politics, about culture, about what's going on in the county and this and that and the whole thing. It's a real local kind of feel. But what I've been able to do through um, the radio show is create a lot of really great relationships with various types of people, the local people. And so, for instance, when I want to do a show on the importance of estate planning, I can pick up the phone and call one of 3 or 4 estate planning attorneys that I've now met and leverage that relationship, come on the radio and talk about the latest in estate planning. And of course, when the big beautiful bill passed and went into effect for this year, I connected with CPAs. Okay, that actually, and it's interesting in this area, a lot of CPAs have stopped doing taxes for people in my target market, which are not just really wealthy, super wealthy people, they're business owners. They walk out of the back, they're either manufacturing something or they're growing something, or or they're just, yeah, they're just somebody, the guy who walks out of the back room wiping the grease off of his hands to talk to you about his life insurance. It's not this. I'm not working a hugely affluent market, because the affluent people that have moved to the county generally continue to do business with their advisors in LA and San Francisco. So it's an interesting dynamic. But anyway, I've been able to leverage the radio show to create contacts for myself in lieu of doing networking groups and doing Rotary, and all those things are great. I tried BNI for a while. That wasn't a good thing. but but really that's how I've created the relationships. And so what I'm finding is again, the handful of people that want to do taxes or want to work with on the estate planning front, that are still looking for business transaction attorneys that do the buy sell agreements and so on and so forth. I can make the connection with them and get them on the radio show and make them a center of influence for myself, and vice versa. I refer business to them. And and as we've rolled out this value accelerator program with the fractional COO and wealth advisor, um, we've invited them. We're actually working the centers of influence, the referral partners, if we pretty hard, and they're all enthusiastic about it. I mean, at the first it was the first seminar we did have some consumers in the room, which was nice, but the one of the CPAs that was in the room said, we kind of said, we don't have any comments on what we've rolled out, and the CPA said, "You're not charging people enough for this service, this overall comprehensive service." And again, so that was a nice feeling that we were actually, again, offering something of value to business owners. So we just have to keep at it. I mean, we've just started this probably 4 or 5 months ago, so and so we're tweaking the offering and moving forward with it on that front. So that but I've almost forgot the question now, but again, that's how I create the relationships with a lot of people here that want to work with me on this stuff. So
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I think it's a testament too, as you mentioned, to finding those and you're serving those who need the resources, right? Where,
Right.
one thing we pride ourselves is democratizing this process. So like you said, it doesn't matter what part of the country you're in, what industry you're in, having the access to something that's gonna, give you those insights, something that you could get from a big consulting firm for tens of thousands of dollars, but it's, in the power of your laptop with you, on Main Street there for you to best serve,
Hmm.
any segment in the country that needs that help and needs that guidance. It's a testament what you built to building those ties and investing in the community, and then being able to
Right.
create win-wins where you're helping them, but also it's creating opportunities for yourself and that ecosystem you built. So we love to see it, and yeah, like you said, continuing to evolve and putting in the work, trial and error, like you said, certain groups. The radio show has obviously been a massive success. But tell me a little bit also, like you said, this new, um, expansion and exit planning and just the space in general. You touched on the process currently, 4 or 5 months in, but tell us a little bit just in general with how you've seen the space grow and why it's so important in terms of just the 5 year window and more when it comes to having a proper exit to plan for that liquid or having that proper exit to plan for that liquidation event down the road.
Well, I mean, let's face it, you guys are on top of it. Your business exit readiness, right? You're the one flyer I keep with me all the time, and I mean, this is. First of all, I'd prefer to call. I wish we were calling it succession planning still. Exit planning sounds so final, but still, everybody's using exit planning. You got the Exit Planning Institute. You got everybody's running after this business now because they see this huge transfer of wealth from one generation to another. And what I find here in this area is we have a lot of family owned businesses. So, you know, when I run across a business owner who's in his late 50s or early 60s and he's got a kid in the business, I ask him, how are you planning on, you planning on, you know, having your son or daughter take over this business, and he says, yeah, well, I'll probably just give it to him when I'm done. And I'm saying, well, how's that going to work? What are you going to live on? How's it? What does this plan look like? And do you have any other kids that aren't going to be in the business that you may have an equity issue? So again, it's just the whole business valuation and exit readiness process. Just it's a natural for having conversations with people, you know. And the other thing is one of the what there's really a lot of gratifying things about doing these business valuations. I mean, first of all, it is working with family businesses and helping them, think through the process and plan through the process. I also, again, having it, so it's funny, I've told you many times that I never even looked at my own tax returns until I started doing business valuation because I had a great CPA. I'd send him my QuickBook reports every year and he'd send me the stuff to sign and I'd send him off to the IRS with a check. So yeah, so it's like, okay, now I really have to understand what's in these tax returns and one of the most one of the most the things that are most valuable to business owners are number one, are you being as when you do this process, is are you being as tax efficient as you possibly can be? It's amazing. I'm working with one case right now where the guy's doing a million and a half of revenue and he's got a real niche in his industry and he's been doing it for years. He's still a sole proprietor. So it's like, when are you going to become a pastor? I mean, I only play an attorney or a CPA on the radio, but so I try to be careful about this. But the fact is, I said, you really should be talking to your CPA about, becoming a little more tax efficient, becoming uh, an S corporation or an LLC or something like that, so you can take advantage of some of the tax breaks that are available, and and that's a huge savings and eye opener to many people if they implement that. Even though here in California we got a crazy corporate tax that we have to pay every year, but it's still worth it. Um, the other thing that's very gratifying to business owners is you can immediately see who has any kind of grip on their financials. because a lot of people, this last client, I mean, he had no grip on his financials. You always hear me say it's like these sole proprietors. I'm going to stop. I don't want to say I'm going to stop doing sole proprietors, but they are so much harder to do evaluation on than somebody who's got a corporation set up. Um, so the tax returns just are not don't have the clarity to help you get a credible valuation, unless you do a lot of detective work with the client. Um, just the fact that you can help a small business owner, closely held business owner, become more tax efficient, be more efficient. I did one for a client who is very tax. I mean, I did his. It took me 3 hours to do his valuation because he had an absolute grip on his numbers. Every time I'd send him an email, what about this? I'd have an answer 5 minutes later. This other one I was just referring to, I've been dealing with it now for 4 months because I can't get the data. But again, that's just part of the process, kind of thing. That's just part of the deal. The other thing that is very gratifying is that when you can get a family business to actually sit down with their kids and have the conversation with them. I did one last year on somebody that was already a life insurance client, and I sold him some life insurance. I've converted some life insurance for him about 5 years earlier, and it was time to review. And I said, let me do a business valuation for you. Just let's, because we really need to get a grip on what this business is worth. And did it. It was fine. They were very happy with the result. But then they started saying, "Well, God, they have a son in the business and a daughter who's not in the business." And I said, "Well, have you had these conversations about, the son just thinks he's just going to take over the business. This is his." And I said, "Well, maybe you need to have a chat with your son and daughter-in-law about how the cow's going to eat the cabbage." And sure, and they were really nervous about it, but Thanksgiving was coming up, and they were determined to have that conversation with their kids. And I talked to them like right after the first of the year, and I said, "So did you have the conversation with your kids?" And they said, "Yeah, we did." And I said, "How did it go?" They said, "It really went great. They really got it." And that made me feel good that whole process got them to that point. So at this, Kevin, you know me, Kevin. At this point in my career, as much as I like making money because I like my lifestyle, and I kind of, after all these years, how I count success because of how long I've been in the business. Um, to me, it's the gratification that you get when you talk to somebody like that that really makes me happy that I do this stuff. So,
Absolutely. No, it's a beautiful thing to see. And like you said too, for us as well, obviously we look at the outcomes in terms of numbers, right? That's where the rubber meets the road. But there's so much of the emotional aspect, whether us seeing our users like yourself finding success here in these stories, or you, like you said, having that fulfillment and a very satisfying, gratifying feeling of knowing that you helped on a higher level from an emotional standpoint and helping in terms of their legacy. It's sometimes tough to put a number on that, right? And also on that note, you mentioned exit readiness. That's where with the updates we saw, like you mentioned, asking about buy sell, having a team in place of the CPA, the attorney, those areas where it's hard to put a number on it, but they have a very big part in that exit planning, just the overall process, that liquidity event. That's why we felt it was time to add that. I know you're one of the first to get in there and start using it. So I know you're already asking us questions, but being able to make it in a very yeah, easier to understand, less, I guess, pressured environment where it's
mhm.
very easy to break down and have a conversation. That way, when you go and approach a family like that and they have the conversation, it's just a much more fluid, overall talk track as opposed to being maybe a conversation that they shy away from and keeping the shadows as opposed to getting out front, maximizing the opportunity so their future's set and secure.
Yep. Yeah, no, the new reports are light years ahead of where it started with the old legacy reports. Again, and I think for most users, again, it's good. It's a great process to at least get you to ask those questions. I mean, again, I'm guessing that some of your BizEquity users are more on the financial planning side than on the insurance side. So but it's something if you don't want to do the insurance, you should team up with somebody who does that. And because it isn't complete until the liquidity is there. The plan is not complete if the liquidity is not there. And I've seen too many examples of that. It's a it's a very small town here, but you know, I've seen some amazing examples of very successful people here who ended up, their families, they passed away and the families couldn't sustain their lifestyle anymore. So yeah, it's important.
Absolutely. So key, like you said, from so many different perspectives, whether it's on the advisor side, the insurance side, all of the CPAs who do want to do this type of work, being able to have those conversations, like you said, whether they're partnering with someone or they're the user themselves. So, um, this has been fantastic. An amazing conversation as always. Like you said, we go back years. I'm sure we could, through the many cases we've worked on together, we could go another, half an hour, hours. But
Hmm.
yeah, I want to be cognizant of your time. And I guess just to wrap up the conclusion of the episode, as you mentioned, just how key valuation is and just your experience on the platform. If you just had any closing thoughts on, how it's been able to overall impact your practice, what you'd say to any, one in the insurance space, the advisory space who's considering utilizing the platform and, what BizEquity means to you.
Well, again, I mean, it 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 helps you get through the process with the client. It's a another potential revenue source if that's the way you want to deal with it, handle it. It's a great service if you're working with business owners. Um, and really, it's a differential. Biz equity is a differentiator for me here. And along with the fact again that they're just, and again, I don't want to go into the, I was involved in a study about 5 or 6 years ago about who's what, if there were really, it was really, we were trying to figure out if there was anybody really still selling life insurance and long-term care insurance to consumers. It was a project that we had, my partner and I had for one of the big consultancy firms, and we found out that really people are not selling these risk products. They're not talking to their clients about their risk and how to solve those risk issues, and just working with business. One thing I should have mentioned, and I should mention more often, is that aside from the life insurance sale for the buy sell or the key person or the estate plan, there's no better person to talk to about their long-term care risk than a business owner, because premiums are partially deductible through their business and the benefits pass tax free. So the best time for somebody to purchase a long-term care insurance policy is if they're a business owner in their 50s. Okay, well, again, you got them right there. That's a risk. You talk about you talk about their risk if they die, the risk if they become disabled and can't work anymore. Okay, that's all in the buy sell agreement. But what happens if somebody suffers early onset Alzheimer's disease in their mid 60s? They start and they can't work anymore. How's that going to impact their business? People are having, and again, so the exit planning conversation goes hand in hand with all of the risk touch points that and there's not enough of us out there anymore. We're dying. I'm a dying breed. There's not a lot of us out there anymore just talking these kinds of things with consumers. So it's again, it's very gratifying. I think you'll, if you take on the Biz Equity platform, expect a bit of a learning curve. But I will tell you that I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I figured it out. It's that with Kevin's help, of course, and and Biz Equities, you guys have been great to work with. I'm blessed and honored to be a call the power user at something. So thank you, Kevin.
Hey, we're very blessed on ourselves, and I'm going to disagree with you on that. I think you're a very sharp individual, an expert at your craft and what you do, and we're very fortunate to have you as one of our power users, and just a part of our mission and what we do, day to day, especially over this past half decade, with how close we've worked together, and a lot of great things to come. So we're truly grateful for that and for your time today. This has been fantastic, a really great and insightful conversation. I know it's earlier on the West Coast too, so we appreciate you starting off your day with us. And giving a lot of great insights to our users that they're going to be able to carry forward as the space continues to evolve, and we both share more wins and grow with them together.
Happy semi quincentennial and go Team USA, right, Kevin?
That's correct. It's funny you mentioned Barry. Actually, I was out west for all the users out there at the World Cup, the U.S.'s second game against Australia, and a gentleman who was sitting next to me in the stands actually was from your area of Central California and wine country. So
Really?
I'd like to, yeah, just like yourself, great gentleman. We're obviously very amped up and living in the moment, and then we got the win. So, like you said, in a big year for the country. Hopefully, the boys can keep winning games. I think actually the next game is out in San Francisco after tomorrow night in LA. So we'll keep the good times going, and a lot of good things to celebrate leading into the 4th of July. And like you said, the 250 celebration, which out here in Philadelphia will be a very big party right next to our office near Independence Hall.
I'll bet that should be a lot of fun. That should be a lot of fun. So, all right.
Absolutely. Barry, it was a pleasure. Yeah, thank you again for all your time, and cheers to many more great years of partnership ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barry.